The broker stole 60% of my paycheck, so I stole his biggest client. I was sitting in the cab of my Kenworth truck at a rest stop in Nevada. It was 3 a.m. My hands were covered in grease, my back was aching, and I had just driven 11 hours straight to deliver a load of steel pipes. I checked my email. The notification from Apex Logistics had finally arrived. It was the settlement for the trip. I expected to see $3,000. Instead, I saw $1,200. I called the broker, a guy named Chad who worked out of a skyscraper in Chicago. He answered on the first ring, sounding like he was at a party. "Hey, Mike," Chad said. "Yeah, market rates dropped overnight. Plus, we deducted a late fee because you arrived at 8:05 instead of 8 o'clock. Read the contract." He was lying. The market hadn't dropped. He was just stealing my money because he knew I was a small owner-operator who couldn't afford a lawyer. He thought I was just a dumb truck driver who steered a wheel and didn't ask questions. But Chad made a mistake. He forgot that before I became a trucker, I was a corporate auditor. And he didn't know that earlier that day, the warehouse manager had accidentally handed me the wrong paperwork. I had the master invoice in my hand. I knew exactly how much the client paid him. He charged the client $5,000 and paid me $1,200. He pocketed nearly $4,000 for making one phone call. I didn't yell. I didn't quit. I hung up the phone and started the engine. Chad thought he controlled the freight. He didn't realize that without trucks, freight doesn't move. I was about to teach him a lesson in supply chain economics. I wasn't just going to get my money back. I was going to cut him out of the deal permanently. Here is the story of how I destroyed a corrupt brokerage and built my own logistics empire. My name is Mike. I own a small trucking company called Iron Horse Transport. It's just me and my truck. In this industry, guys like me are the bottom of the food chain. Here's how the industry works. At the top, you have the shipper. These are factories or farms that have goods to move. At the bottom, you have the carrier, me. We own the trucks and do the work. In the middle, you have the broker. They don't own trucks, they don't own goods, they just own a phone and a computer. They connect the shipper to the carrier and take a commission. A fair commission is 15%, maybe 20%. But brokers like Chad at Apex Logistics were greedy. They operated on a model called double brokering. They would secure a load from a shipper for a high price, say $5,000. Then, instead of giving it to a driver, they would post it on a cheap load board for $1,200, hoping a desperate driver would take it. They provided zero value and took 80% of the profit. I had been hauling for Apex for 6 months. The pay was bad, but I needed the cash flow to pay for diesel and insurance. The incident happened on a Tuesday. I picked up a load of specialized machinery from a factory in Ohio called Precision Manufacturing. When I arrived at the loading dock, the shipping manager, an old guy named Frank, looked stressed. "Thank God you're here," Frank said. "Apex told us the truck broke down yesterday. This shipment is critical. If it doesn't get to Texas by Friday, our client shuts down their assembly line." "I was only assigned this load 2 hours ago," I told him. Frank frowned. "We booked this with Apex 3 days ago. We paid a premium for expedited team drivers." I looked at my rate confirmation sheet from Chad. It didn't say anything about expedited or premium. It just said standard delivery. "Frank," I asked, "do you mind if I ask what you were paying for this run?" "We're paying Apex $8,000, Frank said. I almost choked. Chad was paying me $2,000. He was keeping $6,000, and he had lied to the customer about why the truck was late. He claimed my truck broke down, but in reality, he just held on to the load for 3 days trying to find the cheapest driver possible to maximize his spread. He was gambling with Frank's supply chain to squeeze out a few extra bucks. I didn't say anything to Frank yet. I took the load. I drove to Texas. But as I drove, I started thinking. Chad wasn't just stealing from me, he was lying to his customer. In business, the person who owns the relationship owns the money. Chad thought he owned the relationship with Frank, but Chad was in an office in Chicago. I was the one shaking Frank's hand. I was the one delivering the goods. I realized I could destroy Chad, but I needed proof. I needed to catch him in a lie that was so big, Frank would have no choice but to fire him. I delivered the machinery to Texas on time. I pushed my truck to the limit to make it happen. The receiver was happy. Then I drove back home and started digging. I needed to understand the legal connection between Apex and precision manufacturing. I logged into the FMCSA website, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. This is the government database that tracks every trucking company and broker. I looked up Apex Logistics. Their broker bond was active, but they had complaints, lots of them. Unpaid invoices to drivers, double brokering allegations. Then I called Chad. I recorded the call. "Hey, Chad," I said, "I delivered the Texas load. Frank at the warehouse mentioned they paid for expedited service. Since I drove straight through, do I get a bonus?" Chad laughed. "Frank is confused, buddy. They paid standard rate. I'm actually losing money on this load, paying you $2,000. Be grateful I gave you the work." "Okay," I said, "just checking. By the way, Frank said they have a massive load coming up next week, 10 trucks going to California. Are we getting that?" "Yeah," Chad bragged. "I own that account. I'm charging them 10 grand a truck. I'll give you, let's say, 2,500 for one of them." 10 grand a truck, 10 trucks. That is a $100,000 contract, and he was going to pay the drivers $25,000 total. He was planning to pocket $75,000 profit for doing nothing. "Sounds good, Chad," I said. "Send me the confirmation." I hung up. Now I had him on tape lying about the rates and admitting to the massive markup. But recording wasn't enough. I needed to get in front of Frank again. I spent the weekend designing a brochure. I didn't make it look like a cheap trucker flyer. I made it look corporate. Iron Horse Logistics, asset-based direct carrier, no middlemen, no excuses, real-time tracking. On Monday morning, instead of waiting for a load from Chad, I drove my truck, bobtail, without a trailer, straight back to Precision Manufacturing in Ohio. I walked into the shipping office. Frank was there, drinking coffee. "Mike?" he asked, surprised. "You forget something?" "No, Frank," I said. "I came to save you $50,000. I laid 2 pieces of paper on his desk. Paper 1, the rate confirmation Chad sent me for $2,000. Paper 2, a screenshot of the FMCSA complaints against Apex Logistics. Frank, you paid Apex $8,000 for that last run. They paid me $2,000. They kept $6,000. And they lied to you about why the truck was late. They held your freight hostage for 3 days to find a cheap driver." Frank's face turned red. "Are you serious?" "Yes," I said. "And I know you have 10 loads going to California next week. Apex is charging you $100,000. I can do it for $70,000. I'll hire the other drivers directly. You save $30,000 instantly, and the drivers will get paid double what Apex pays them, so they will actually care about your cargo." Frank looked at the papers. He looked at me. "Can you handle the capacity? You're just one guy." "I'm one guy with a network," I said. "I know 20 other owner-operators who are tired of getting ripped off. If you sign with me, you get a dedicated fleet. No random brokers, no lies. Direct communication." Frank picked up the phone. "Get me legal," he said to his secretary. Then he looked at me. "Don't leave." Frank, the warehouse manager, was furious. He was looking at the rate confirmation from Chad showing that Apex was paying me only $2,000 while charging him $8,000. "That thief," Frank muttered. "He told me the extra $6,000 was for emergency driver surcharges and insurance risk. He said you guys were demanding more money." "We never saw a dime of that," I said. "Chad is pocketing the spread, and he's doing it to every driver he hires. That's why your shipments are always late, Frank, because he hires the cheapest, most desperate drivers he can find to maximize his own profit. Frank looked at me. Okay, Mike, I believe you, but I have a contract with Apex. If I break it, their lawyers will come after me. Read the contract, Frank, I said. Most brokerage contracts have a performance clause. If they failed to deliver on time 3 times in a quarter, you can terminate for cause. Frank pulled up the records. Apex had been late 5 times this month alone. We can fire them, Frank realized. Fire them, I said, and sign with me. But don't tell Chad yet. Let's set a trap. We devised a plan. The next day, Frank sent an email to Chad at Apex. He requested 10 trucks for the California run. He acted desperate. He said, "Price is no object. Just get it done." Chad took the bait. He sent back a quote for $120,000 for 10 trucks. That's $12,000 per truck. Then, Chad posted the loads on the public job board for drivers. He offered $1,800 per truck. He was trying to make a $10,000 profit per truck. It was greed on a level I had never seen. But this time, nobody took the loads. Why? Because I had spent the last 24 hours on the phone with every owner-operator in my network. I told them, do not touch the precision manufacturing load from Apex. Wait for my call. Chad started panicking. The pickup time was approaching, and he had 0 trucks. He started raising the price on the board. $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Still, nobody bit. At 2 p.m., 2 hours before the deadline, Chad called me. "Mike," he sounded breathless. "Buddy, I have a huge opportunity for you. 10 loads, California. I'll pay you $5,000 a truck. Can you mobilize your friends?" "Sorry, Chad," I said, putting my feet up on my dashboard. "I'm busy." "Busy doing what?" he screamed. "This is 50 grand in your pocket." "I'm busy working directly for the customer you just lost," I said. Then I hung up. At 3 p.m., my fleet rolled into the precision manufacturing lot. 10 gleaming trucks. Not junkers like Chad usually hired, but professional rigs owned by men who took pride in their work. I walked into Frank's office. He was on the phone with Chad. He put it on speaker so I could hear. "You are in breach of contract, Chad," Frank said coldly. "The trucks aren't here." "I just need 1 more hour," Chad begged. "The market is tight. Drivers are demanding crazy rates." "The market isn't tight, Chad," Frank said. "I'm looking out my window right now and I see 10 trucks ready to load." "What? Whose trucks?" Chad stammered. "Iron Horse Logistics, Mike's company, and effective immediately, they are our exclusive carrier. Your contract is terminated for cause." "You can't do that," Chad screamed. "That's back solicitation. Mike signed a non-compete. I'll sue him. I'll sue you." "Actually," Frank said, enjoying this, "I had my legal team review Mike's contract with you. The non-compete clause only applies if you pay him within 30 days. You haven't paid his last invoice. You voided your own contract." Frank hung up the phone. We loaded the trucks. It was the smoothest operation Frank had ever seen. No middlemen calling every 5 minutes with lies, just direct communication between the shipper and the drivers. We delivered the load to California 2 days ahead of schedule. When the invoice came due, Frank paid us the full $70,000. I kept $7,000 as my management fee, 10%, and I distributed $63,000 to the drivers. That meant each driver made $6,300 for the trip. Under Chad, they would have made $1,800. I tripled their pay, saved the customer $30,000, and still made a profit myself. That is the power of cutting out a parasitic middleman. But Chad wasn't done. He tried to report my DOT number. He tried to leave fake reviews on my company profile. He was petty. So I decided to finish him. I took the evidence of his double brokering, the discrepancy between what he charged Frank and what he offered drivers, and I sent it to the TIA, Transportation Intermediaries Association. This is the governing body for brokers. Double brokering is a serious ethics violation. It destroys market transparency. 2 weeks later, Apex Logistics had their membership revoked. Without that certification, major shippers wouldn't touch them. Chad lost his biggest client, his reputation, and his bonus. Last I checked, he's selling used solar panels in Florida. Today, Iron Horse Logistics isn't just me and my truck. We have 50 owner-operators running lanes all across the country. We operate on a simple model: transparency. We show our drivers exactly what the customer pays. We take a flat 10% fee for administration, and the driver keeps 90%. We are disrupting the industry. Drivers are flocking to us because they're tired of being robbed by brokers like Chad. Shippers love us because we don't lie to them. I went from sleeping in rest stops, wondering if I could afford diesel, to running a company with $5 million in annual revenue. I still drive sometimes, just to remind myself of where I came from. There is nothing like the open road. I learned that in business, there are 2 ways to make money. You can add value, or you can extract value. Chad was an extractor. He tried to stand between 2 people and charge a toll. I became an aggregator. I brought people together and made everyone richer. If you are in an industry dominated by middlemen, whether it's real estate, trucking, or marketing, look for the inefficiency. Look for the person who is taking a cut without doing the work. That person is your opportunity. Cut them out, and you will find a gold mine waiting for you. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about how to start a trucking authority or how to spot double brokering scams, I've put a guide in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep on trucking.